Okay, it seems like everything is up and working, so I'm just gonna do a quick watch of Lily Orchard's new video. I downloaded it to avoid any issues. I also want to preemptively say that this is fair use. I'm uploading this VOD to YouTube, so I'm probably gonna put that blurb in the front, but this is fair use, so if she comes for me, that's gonna be really awkward because I'm just responding to her criticism. I'm not like re-uploading the video. So, without further ado, just let me know if the audio works for the video. Let me turn it down a little bit because she's really loud. So I'll just pause intermittently and be like, say my piece. I think a second response to this is completely fair because from what I'm hearing, she's basically doubled down after reading the manga, which is kind of crazy. But, if this was just her opinion, if she just didn't like it, that's totally fine, that's her prerogative, but it's the fact that she's espousing her interpretation as the objective truth and reading of Meshi, and I think that's what's really getting on everyone's nerves. It's the fact that she is treating her opinion as if it's the truth. I wouldn't have made even that first video if she just was like, hey, like, this isn't for me. I said in the first one, like, if she acknowledged that this wasn't for her and didn't make a big deal out of it, no one would have cared. But it's the fact that she is treating, like, all these characters in the writing as if it's bad because she didn't personally understand it. All while admitting that she's not an anime fan, that she doesn't care for serialized series, so on and so forth. I take a lot of issue with her criticisms, so without further ado, this is her new her new review of Meshi.
Covering anime when you aren't a weeb is like saying Bloody Mary in the bathroom mirror. If you're negative, you're gonna have the screeching of 1,000 illiterate fucksticks descend upon you like a horde of sweaty, unwashed, transphobic bats. And if you're positive, you're gonna have 100 different shows recommended to you, ranging from the understandable to the downright deranged.
So these are all shows someone has tried to recommend to me in earnest for some reason. Okay. Yeah, of course someone would recommend her or I've just found out about all the stuff that she's been caught up in, so that's a little awkward. A free run catching a stray for no reason. I think she did a review of this. Yeah, not the thing is, she's like admitting that she doesn't care about anime constantly, so I don't understand why she's coming on this and like platforming herself as the voice of reason when she just doesn't care about anime to begin with.
I have a rule about not taking recommendations. You see, when I was 11, my brother and his friends made me play a really sad visual novel about a girl dying of kidney failure, and ever since then I've had trust issues.
Clannad? Really?
It's also why I have a rule about going into everything pre-spoiled. In general, recommendations are sought for affirmation first and foremost.
Did she just say she goes into everything spoiled? No, wait.
I have a rule about not taking recommendations. You see, when I was 11, my brother and his friends made me play a really sad visual novel about a girl dying of kidney failure, and ever since then I've had trust issues. It's also why I have a rule about going into everything pre-spoiled.
Is that her actual stance? Going to everything spoiled? She's incredibly adamant of being against spoiler culture? Oh, so she's against experiencing a story in full and in earnest? She spoils Meshi's ending in the video? Oh my god. Okay. This is my first time watching this video. That's why I downloaded it, because like I didn't want to give her a full view or AdSense. I literally just hopped on, disliked it, copied the link, and downloaded. Yeah, that's really tragic. So if anyone's watching that hasn't read Meshi, I recommend getting off the video then, because apparently she spoils the ending. Oh my god, that's so bad.
In general, recommendations are sought for affirmation first and foremost, and as the average schmuck in the YouTube comment section knows about as much about your taste as they do their own. Like, I don't really care for shonen, and oftentimes people in the comment section come to the conclusion that I just haven't found the right one to get me into it. But shonen has been around in North America since I was 3 years old. I've seen plenty of it. I just don't like it.
Why is she showing a clip of Spy Family while talking about shonen?
You know what I do like, though? Old shit. You ever actually sit down to watch Princess Night? Or Astro Boy? They're a trip, I tell you what. Hell, I started watching Princess Tutu recently just because one of my friends adores it, and I absolutely adore them to the point I consider them family, so I want to join in the things they like.
And on top of that, I'm always too hasty, like PK.
Not the dub. Come on.
I'm weird. I mean, don't you think I'm weird? Shoot, even I think I'm weird.
I don't.
Huh? You don't think I'm weird?
I don't.
I can't believe it. No one's ever said that to me.
Oh no, she's cringe. This is perfect. See, these days when it comes to anime, I usually trust the recommendations of people close to me who could immediately tell me if something will be up my alley. At least I assume that's why I keep 3 weebs around. And failing that, I have a friend in Okinawa who will warn me if someone's trying to sneak in something fucky under the radar. Which brings me to today's subject, because after being recommended Delicious in Dungeon, ostensibly a show about making a cookbook out of a dungeon bestiary, the first thing I did was consult her about it, and she warned me that not only did it have a typical grand fantasy plot hiding underneath, but also
Okay. Here we go.
so that the biggest roadblock to enjoying the show is the main protagonist is an extremely acquired taste.
Objectively untrue. I think the majority of people that watch or read Dun Meshi, if not everyone that I've encountered that's been enjoying the series, loves Lios, and to reduce the main storyline to being, quote, like, general fantasy anime plot is kind of so, that's such like that's an intentional misinterpretation of the plot. Like, I don't understand how you come to that conclusion, especially now that she's read the manga and experienced the story in full. The fact that she is quoting someone as saying that this is a general fantasy story and then espousing that continuously throughout her original review, and I'm assuming it's going to continue through this review, really embarrassing. But okay.
Armed with this
Oh yeah, so you say what's wrong with Lios? She really doesn't like Lios. In her original video, she goes on like a tirade against autistic people, while claiming that she's autistic, and like polices their behavior and says like if you relate to Lios, like you're not a good autistic person, whatever. So she just really hates Lios for no reason. She says he's annoying, but again, I really think that's just oh my god, like I get so annoyed thinking about it because hearing her complaints, it's like she read and watched Dun Meshi with her eyes closed, and literally everyone in the comments of the original video, like my response video, was like pointing out like I'm just gonna be quoting stuff from the anime that's happened thus far. When Lios gets his leg bitten off to defeat the Red Dragon, Lios has moments of guilt, Lios constantly expressing that he wants to save Phelan, the moment that they hug each other tenderly and he's like, don't do that to me ever again. Like, there's so many things that point to Lios's care for Phelan, but then Lily is just like, oh, he doesn't care about Phelan, and also this isn't urgent enough.
knowledge, I boldly ventured into Delicious in Dungeon, and when I emerged on the other side, I went, well, that was certainly one of the shows of all time. Delicious in Dungeon is a comedy, drama, slice-of-life, fantasy, horror, action series. No, you did not just read that wrong. About a pair of adventurers and a
What the hell did you just call it?
dungeon, and when I emerged on the other side, I went, well, that was certainly one of the shows of all time. Delicious in Dungeon is a comedy, drama, slice-of-life, fantasy, horror, action
And that's another issue. She's not understanding that Dungeon Meshi really wants to subvert all those tropes, so it just takes fantasy and creates its own story out of it. It's not like just shoving itself in different molds, but she's expecting everything to fit cleanly into a genre box, which is so harmful to enjoying Dun Meshi. Like, you're going in with all these expectations, and then she wanted to go in spoiled throughout the whole story. So I don't understand why she's saying it's all these genres. It's a story. It's a fully fleshed out narrative.
series. No, you did not just read that wrong. About a pair of adventurers in a fantasy world very loosely inspired by Baldur's Gate, exploring a dungeon that's a cross between Purgatory and the Backrooms. The show starts after the entire group wipes to a dragon several floors down because their tank was busy thinking
Yes, of course. Average YouTube review, aka summarizing the plot.
about pies while his party was getting slapped around and boiled alive.
See, that's another thing. Like, she used this exact bit in the original video, and I already talked about this in my first video, saying that, like, he's thinking about food because they're getting absolutely owned by the dragon, and he's like, holy shit, like, we were not prepared for this. We fell several floors deeper than we should have. We're ahead of schedule. We're starving. We're tired. We didn't get enough rest. Like, we're doing everything wrong. And so he is just standing there petrified because they've done so much wrong. Like, this is literally said in the first 2 minutes of the show. So saying that he's standing there thinking about meat pies is ridiculous, because he's thinking about how they've messed up, and like they're starving, they're tired, they're exhausted, they're failing.
There was a mistake on our map, so we wasted a day getting here. Then we lost 3 days of food in a trap we fell into.
She talks about Baldur's Gate because she doesn't have any other thing to compare it to, and she also misunderstands Ryoko Kui drawing inspiration from Baldur's Gate, which I also talked
before
about
they
in the
can all
original
become
video.
dragon food, his sister Fallon sacrifices herself to get the rest of them out of the dungeon, whereupon 2 of the party immediately says, "Fuck this shit," and G quits. You could just feel the love in this group already. Now faced with the notion of having to get back to Fallon before she completely breaks.
They're literally strangers. They're co-workers. What does she expect? They're not going to be besties. They're co-workers. He's literally their boss.
Down in the dragon's stomach, her 3 remaining friends boldly mosey back into the dungeon with all the urgency of a leisurely stroll down the street. Yeah, this show has just a teeny, tiny, little, gaping tonal problem.
She says the tonal thing too, which I also
the best
addressed
idea would
already.
be to cook and eat the monsters they kill inside the dungeon, leading to wacky hijinks. The comedy of Delicious in Dungeon is mostly reaction-based. Either a character has a comical overreaction to something, a comical underreaction to something, or has the completely wrong reaction to something. You mean a comical wrong reaction, right, Lil? If I'd meant that, I would have said it. That having been said, if you were expecting a goofy comedy about cooking monster food, you should be aware that the comedy has to split a time.
But that's the other issue. Like I said in my first video, she's going into this expecting a straightforward comedy. She expected something that Dungeon Meshi wasn't. She went in expecting like Spy Family. She went in expecting slice of life, and that is not what Dungeon Meshi is. Like, ultimately it is a high fantasy story. So the fact that she's not expecting other tones to be in this is telling of what she expects and the media that she typically engages with. So that again is her fault for going in, you know, especially if she went in pre-spoiled and she still was like, oh, but this is me a comedy, right? I don't understand the logic there.
With a pretty generic adventure fantasy plot, and neither of them could really agree on a timetable, so the tone jerks back and forth so abruptly between comedy and drama, you might think you sat on the remote and skipped to the next episode. Just to use the rescue of Fallon as an example, the tone pings back and forth between silly scenes of reassembling bones and characters having goofy, awkward scenes with Fallon, and dramatic, nightmarish rituals of blood and tearing flesh 7 times in 10 minutes.
And then again, like, her being like, oh, that's a tonal issue. It's literally, you know, finding joy in these small moments together and having hope. That entire scene of reviving Fallon was full of hope. They were like, oh my gosh, like, we finally have a chance of bringing her back, even though she's skeleton, even though she's nothing but viscera. Like, there is a chance of bringing her back. So obviously that's gonna be have a lighter tone, but that's not just like, oh my god, silly comedy, goofy, oh my goodness. It's a very intimate scene. They literally reassemble her body. They bring her back from nothing, almost, and it's a very, I think it's very tender, because you're getting, especially Marcel and Lios, they're really bonding at this point in the series and onward, so they're doing that while reassembling someone that is very dear to them.
It almost makes you wish TV shows had a way to section off and isolate these things from each other, so a silly comedy plot doesn't have to share the same space with a drama plot. We could call it an episode, but I'm just talking crazy again. McKay, get my man.
And that's another thing. She doesn't like that this is a serialized series. She wants comedy episode, tragic episode. She doesn't like that there is a plot running through this. But that's a common issue, apparently, with her reviews, that she expects everything to just be how she likes it and how she wants it. So she takes issue when it's not formatted in the way that she enjoys. And then she acts like that's an objective issue with the show and its tone.
I'm hearing the voices. Most of the show's tonal issues actually come from the main character, Lios, who reacts to his sister needing to be rescued like Eeyore's resigning himself to the day's misfortune.
This is what got everyone mad in the first place.
But the moment an edible monster shows up, it's like someone's whacked him in the tailbone with a cattle prod.
Saving my poor sister is the only thing on my mind.
Sure it is.
There's a profound absence of tension with Lios, given the weight of the situation he and the group have found themselves in. Sure, they can't just no-clip through the dungeon floors and have to take the long way down where Fallon is, but the entire time he's on horse tranquilizers, unless the subject...
I think this is her fault, for one, watching the dub. I think the dub is really poorly performed. So, you know, just my opinion, but I do think that lends itself to the issue with Dungeon Meshi and the way that she watched it. Like, the tone and delivery of the dub was really, really poorly performed. So, like I said in the first video, I'll give her that much, but you see, like, there is an urgency Lios is the one that wanted to go back in the dungeons in the first place. Lios is the one that really pushes the group to continue forward. He recruits Senshi basically into the party to have a consistency in meal and rest, which they didn't have when they faced the dragon in the first place. Like, it's slow. This is literally the tortoise and the hare kind of situation. The first time that they went through the dungeon, it was a very hare situation. They rushed through, they got to the bottom floor, and then they lost. Now they're taking their time. They're pacing themselves. That is the entire conflict with Shuro in episode 18. The Shuro's party wasn't pacing themselves, so they're burnt out, they're failing. Lios is rested, eating well, and there is a sense of urgency. That's why they keep progressing. But she's not keeping up with the actual time progression in the series. Like, they'll go through a floor to 2 floors per episode. Like, they're not rushing themselves through it. That's why she's saying that it doesn't feel urgent. Yeah, and I agree. The Lios kind of hams it up in the dub, but it's still not a very good performance. And I'm saying that as a fan of the voice actor, because I watched his stuff on Smosh, I fear. So I really enjoy him as a performer, but I don't think that he did well as Lios.
Ends up being monsters. And there's no way around it. This makes him come off like a fucking asshole. Half the content surrounding him,
Again, this is where we're going to delve into the ableism territory.
about the show and the comic, is other characters constantly being incensed by his insensitivity, and his near constant sidetracks back to monsters. I got the impression early on that Lios cares more about monsters than about people, and that impression was...
I mean, that's kind of the point of Dungeon Meshi. Me, when the character that is intentionally written to be othered is in fact othered and prefers the company of monsters to humans that isolated him and treated him like garbage.
right, because it's later established that because his village was a pack of shitheads to him and his sister, he decided the sensible, level-headed thing to do was to leave the backwards, obsolete rural communities behind and venture off into the civilized world of the urban. He became a jaded misanthrope who, aside from his sibling, has a dim view of people.
Oh my god. And that's such a blatant misinterpretation again of what happens. He was never able to find a community or place for himself in society because he was raised, 1, in the sticks, and 2, he was never sociable to begin with. He always found his company with either his sister or animals. Most of the time he was spending socializing was with animals. That's why he is able to bark like a dog, and his idea of socializing is ingrained in socializing through the lens of a dog. That is established several times over. That is his fascination with wargs. That is why he talks about his dog so much. That is why he becomes one. That's what he sees himself as. And because of this very stifled development into communication, and the fact that he wasn't able to grow up around people his age or communicate very well, is the reason he's like that. So I just think that's such a blatant misinterpretation of what happens. Like, it's his backstory clearly states that he doesn't find community anywhere, and he just allows himself to be taken advantage of to feel like he belongs to places. Yeah, the reading of the Wicked Lie dialogue is so boneheaded. Oh my god, this is like so stressful.
Shitty parents, shitty community, upbeat nihilism, the wrong emotional reactions to absolutely everything, extremely questionable eating habits, and their only primary human connection is their...
And the extremely questionable eating habits is also kind of silly, because she's just ignoring the fact that his one and only special interest is the book that his mother gifted to him. That is something that he's memorized. It is a core part of him. And the fact that he shares that with Senshi is what makes it so much easier for them to progress through the dungeon in order to save Phelan. Yeah, and the fact you read this as nihilism is just so bizarre.
Sibling. Well, that sounds familiar. Only kidding. Honestly,
did she just show the coffin of Andy and Lele? Are you serious right now? You're joking. You are joking.
Okay, let's see. Shitty parents, shitty community, upbeat nihilism, the wrong emotional reactions to absolutely everything, extremely questionable eating habits, and their only primary human connection is their sibling. Well, that sounds...
Oh my god.
familiar. Only kidding. Honestly, Lios reminds me of Pokemon Sun and Moon, where something really intense and dramatic can be happening, and every character is just absolutely losing it, while the player character is just standing there astrally projecting. In fact, an even better comparison would be BoJack Horseman, the main character of BoJack Horseman. Oh, you didn't need to know that part. And the entire show's...
This is not a one-to-one comparison, so pay attention. Well, I think she's doing this to cover her ass because of the reaction that she got last time. But I still think this is going to be a very inept comparison. Let's find out.
Primary theme is that BoJack Horseman fucking sucks and nobody likes him. And I feel the same way about Lios as I do about BoJack. BoJack Horseman does a lot of good moments that use the fact that the character is an unlikable son of a bitch who would rather pity himself than actually improve as a
Oh my god.
person. But in order to get there, you still have to endure a character who is an unlikable son of a bitch who would rather pity himself than actually improve as a person.
But that's never what happens in Dungeon Meshi. Like, the whole point of BoJack is that he falls off and he intentionally keeps digging this hole deeper. Like, he'd rather, again, cover his own ass than develop as a person. Lios realizes that he has to give up a lot in order to keep going. He lived for himself for a brief period of time before Phelan joined him in the dungeons, and then, again, now he's living to save her. A lot of what he does is to save Phelan. Like, I don't, like, the comparison is just to be like, oh, Lios is bad and doesn't grow as a person. Lios is not inherently bad. This is just her reading him as being annoying and then finding justification for it. But this is canonically not what goes on.
As compelling as such a concept can be, it's also exceptionally painful to get through, and frankly, I can't do it. I can't stand Lios. I find the balance between his inability to match the tone of everyone else in the room and the point where he starts taking things seriously are so wildly out of balance, he just comes off like a dick. When I was discussing this with people, some charming folk with bicycle pumps embedded in their skull screeched at me to read the comic because it proves me wrong about Lios.
But even the anime is depicting him the exact same way it does in the manga, so I don't know why she's just, like, insulting people telling her to read the manga, but I digress. That's the thing also. She always goes to attack people for liking things or having different opinion than her, and then she, you know, girl, like, don't throw stones from a glass house, because then she gets mad when people are, like, turning that on her. And even then, a lot of the people who responded to her initial criticism were just like, hey, you're obviously just choosing to misinterpret the entire series. And then she's like, oh my god, these people are calling me slurs, even though I read the comments of her original video. No one said that. They were just like, why are you misreading this so poorly?
And I did read the comic and I found two things. One, he's actually worse in the comic because people are putting more pressure on him. There's an especially egregious example when Fallon makes her second appearance, having been turned into a giant rubber chicken dragon. And Lios looks upon the way his sister has been twisted and violated and says,
It's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Okay, this
The shitty dub strikes again, but I also addressed this in my original video.
fucking guy. In the show, his next line involves him wondering if Fallon got too greedy with the amount of monster she is now, and it just pans over Fallon until Marcel reminds everyone what the appropriate response is. But in the comic when he's saying this, the shot's on him and she's looking at him like, bro, what the unholy fuck is wrong with you?
Well, the whole reason that Lios is saying that in the manga is because he feels like the way that she came back was such an amalgam that is very hard to pin down. So he's calling it greedy because there's so many traits that make her a very overpowered monster. This chimera is like an unknowable beast. That's why him and Kabru failed to slay her in the first place. He's calling it greedy because, like his ideal chimera, it fuses a lot of ideal traits from other monsters to make something very strong and unknowable.
If that wasn't enough, Lios gets the cosmic hammer coming down on him so many times you'd swear he was any woman in a Blizzard game. Every character is at some point telling him to fuck off and rejoin us all in reality. Deity-like creatures call him out for fantasizing about monsters destroying.
Okay, see, now she's just going on and spoiling the main series. So this is gonna be my only time responding to it. This is what the lion preys on, so I don't understand what she's going on about.
His entire village, and even his ending involves him just getting fucked. Hey, you hate people and love monsters? Well, now you're the king of people, the dungeon's gone, and monsters are repelled.
Yeah, because that's supposed to be the curse. The curse is supposed to. Oh my god! And why is she spoiling the ending? I'm like so mad right now. The curse is supposed to be a mystery until this point, so I don't understand why she's talking about this. And even then, he still utilizes his knowledge of monsters at this point in the series.
Shit, dickhead. This is the part where I end up being vindicated over every bitchy little weeb currently infesting the intellectual void that is Twitter, because Lios consistently refuses to be a better person, and
yeah, that's his sacrifice. I don't understand what her argument is. Like, she's supposed to be like, oh my god, Lios is a bad person for having a special interest. Girl.
as punishment, he just takes L for the rest of time. Like, that's his lore. But wait, Lily, if this is intentional and he gets fucked, what's your problem? Well, this part where he gets fucked is over 70 chapters into the comic.
Yeah, that's called a character arc, Lily. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a long time to have to put up with Lios, and the moment where his character shows redeeming qualities are few and far between. There's a point where Lios tries to justify himself and his attitude on the basis that neglecting his health in the interest of rushing to Fallon's rescue would just be counterproductive. But honestly, I'm not really asking for him to rush himself. By all means, take your time so you do it correctly. What I'm asking for is some actual human tension. The creator of this
Yeah, there is tension. Again, like I addressed this in the initial video. Yeah, what's crazy, she spoils the manga and manages to not understand it at the end. She just speed read it. Yeah, exactly.
show's a big fan of Baldur's Gate, and the entire first half of Baldur's Gate 2 is an
I
extended
also
rescue mission to
I also already talked about this in my original video.
retrieve the player character's sister by building up the goal to fund the rescue and also getting the equipment to survive Spellhole. You can't rush it because you're locked into an entirely linear second act from that point onward. But the tension is maintained through 3 dreams where Imoen haunts the player, and it happens every few rests. And there's even a mod
Oh
that
my
adds
god,
3
and I'm only like not even 10 minutes into this. I deserve wow, this is really painful actually. This is like being put in a saw trap.
more dreams and complimentary conversations with other characters to keep that tension going. At all times, Imoen's central place in the Ballspawn's heart is always reinforced, even if the player is taking the time to go through every side quest. Hell, Imoen isn't in actual serious danger until after you complete this part of the quest. Imoen is so central to the player character that being mean to her is often too evil even for evil players. There's a distinct lack of that kind of anxiety with Lios, and Fallon is supposed to be the one human being he actually gives a shit about. If anything, making him the misanthrope to end all misanthropes works against him even harder, because like,
But calling
bro,
him a misanthrope is again an intentional misinterpretation of Lios. It's not that he doesn't care about humanity. That's something that's explored in the manga. He does care about humanity. He does care about the success of humanity, but he himself doesn't feel human. This is established again very early on, and that's why he turns himself into a dog in the nightmare encounter. So it's kind of just again ridiculous and just painting him out to be this annoying white man because that's apparently the only thing she takes issue with.
that's your favorite person. I've heard some people suggest that Lios might be autistic. I'm not sure I'd agree
That's an entire thing I discussed in my video also.
with that, because the story makes it clear his monster obsession
Is she just gonna show this panel like over and over again?
and his misanthropy are the direct result of growing up in an ignorant backwater hellhole, and regressing so much into his monster obsession he refuses to let go of his adolescent view of humanity.
Which is also not true because he grows up in the army. He literally enrolls in the army. This is also covered already in the anime. He leaves the village to grow as a person, but he keeps being ostracized because he doesn't understand how to socialize. He is someone that is so different from everyone else that he will never find a place among other people. That is a very, very clear and direct allegory for autism.
Or to accept that people are complicated and maybe your dipshit hometown sucked, but sometimes that's life, loser.
And
so
the entire oh my god, and the point of the winged lion again is to honey talk him and to make him feel weak and create these rhetorical trappings for Lios.
The claim he's autistic coded smacks to me of trying to underwrite all of that. Look, there's an intersection between
Which is also not underwriting this. I talked about this in my original video.
neurodivergence and the systemic abuse neurodivergent people experience as children that contributes greatly to the whole spectrum part of the autism spectrum. It's not just that autism affects.
Also, sorry to be really annoying, but there are recent studies about autism that completely abolish the spectrum concept and compare it more to soup. That is a very antiquated way of viewing autism and kind of blaming a lot of transgressions autistic people face on certain factors rather than acknowledging it as a very diverse and nuanced neurological disorder that pulls from a lot of traits.
Everyone in different ways. Every autistic person has different opinions and beliefs on how to manage it formed by their experiences. Some autistic people grow up thinking neurotypical social conventions are complete horseshit and think, why even bother learning these? They're fucking stupid and we should do away with them. So struggling with social cues isn't even a problem they feel they need to work on at all. Autistic people have all the same.
See, she backtracked here because in her original review, this is where she starts bashing autistic people for thinking like that. She starts being like, if you're an autistic person that functions like this, like, I don't understand what kind of autistic person you are. Like, you're a bad autistic, basically. Like, she just ends up bashing people for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
nuanced beliefs on their experiences that you primitive neurotypicals do, and this often affects how we approach our autism and how we decide to nurture ourselves. Autism is a spectrum, but it's a spectrum for reasons both psychological and sociological. And the problem I have is that an autistic person's disposition is often attributed solely to their autism and not to anything else that informs your personality. And not just by neurotypical people.
But again, this is an intentional misinterpretation of Lios, because this is established that he is already born inherently different, and then he experiences sociological factors that reinforce this otherness. So it is an intersection of the two. It's not underwriting him. He is already othered. He is already different. He is written to be interpreted as autistic and different. And then his social experiences just continue to reinforce this difference. So it's not, it's not underwriting it. This is just Lios as a character.
And fucking autism, moms. Autistic people do this as well. A neurotypical person is allowed to be a petulant little antisocial asshole, but if an autistic person does the same thing, people often go, well, that's the tism for you. Lios's autistic traits are hyperfixating on monsters and looking at social cues and going, huh, I wonder who that's for. But he's also such a
This panel too, if I did a drinking game out of this, I would have already been hospitalized.
nihilistic misanthrope that he doesn't really care to address or consider.
And just the constantly calling him a misanthrope. Oh my god.
Either of those things, which compounds both of those issues, not least of which being that he's reached the age of 26, still clinging on to an idea about humanity born from being a miserable teenager in an egg-ring backwater hellhole. Yeah,
again, she just completely ignores his growth into adulthood. He's 26 now, and he spent years trying to integrate himself into society while failing because he was othered.
It's this idea that autism is some kind of personality override rather than a single part of a greater whole that informs your personality that I've always found deeply troubling. You have to be the kind of person who thinks checking an autistic person for being rude and inconsiderate is inherently ableist, and I've never met anyone who sincerely believes that who wasn't the one getting checked, who thinks checking an autistic person for being rude and inconsiderate is inherently ableist.
Again, people are calling her ableist for this, for her original review, because she was just ended up equating Lios to real life autistic people that related to him and being like, if you act like this as an autistic person, you're a bad person, and just ripping into them. And that's why I really took issue and called her ableist, because it was like a really, really gross stance to take and was such an ad hominem attack. Like, she just clearly wanted to be mad about this, and fine, again, it's her opinion, but the fact that she's treating it as the heart of the series and the only true real interpretation of Lios is so bad. And then just being like, oh, if saying it's able to check someone for being rude, that's not the issue that people had. That's exactly what I talked about in my initial video, but whatever.
And I've never met anyone who sincerely believes that who wasn't the one getting checked and was upset about it. Not to commit a grave mortal sin in the eyes of the inbred hicks that infest Twitter and say something positive about the Big Bang Theory, but one thing I always liked about that show is that the characters are always checking each other without it severely impacting.
Of course. Yes, we love when Lily Orchard talks about Big Bang Theory and how awesome it is and what a great depiction of autism that Sheldon Bazinga is, just like the Good Doctor, am I right?
Their friendship, showcasing that even in moments where they're cross with each other, they still care about each other enough to want their friends to be the best possible versions of themselves. You can take or leave literally everything else, but that part is something I adore. I've always liked characters with issues who are handling them and dealing with them and working them out. Like this guy.
It's not fair for me to depend on you
no.
for the rest of my life. At least not as much.
Yuri Breyer is a character with a lot.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. No. We can't be doing this. We can't be doing this.
Of deep-seated emotional and psychological issues, even more than Lios, most of which are directed at Yor, but he is always trying to make sure that is never Yor's problem to deal with.
While projecting onto Yor very weird incesty fantasies and also working for a Nazi regime. Okay, buddy.
And I find that commendable. And Lios behaving the way he does in the mid-levels of the dungeon is one thing, but the point where I said, fuck this guy, was when he looked at his sister, saw the way she'd been violated, and went, well, that's cool. You compile all the context onto it that you want. It doesn't change the fact that that's a lot. That's a lot for what was supposed to be one of the more lighthearted shows on the market. I know he gets called
This
out
is
on
not
it,
supposed
but
to be a
it's
lighthearted
just
show.
A lot. I've been doing this job for a long time, and over the years I've encountered characters and even entire works that asked a lot of me of what I'm going to put up with on the promise of payoff later. And I've been able to do that to an extent. It's not often that I just write a character or a work off completely, and usually when I do, it's because they just ask me to put up with too much.
She literally wrote Dungeon Meshi off to begin with because she went in pre-spoiled apparently. So, and she went in with these opinions while also saying that she doesn't like anime and that she expected nothing out of this show. So that's, again, her own fault.
Characters who just won't learn their lesson, characters who rely on authorial fiat to succeed, characters who change personalities at the drop of a hat because their writers can't make up their minds, characters who cross the line into just being unpleasant to watch regardless of their place in the story, and characters who just fucking suck. And I'm honestly at my limit. I mentioned earlier I don't take requests, especially regarding anime, but a dirty secret there is that there is a way to get me to watch a given anime, and that is to be someone I love. My wife loves Digimon, and because I love
Okay, now we're getting the extended Digimon comparison from the first review.
Of my wife, I watched it with her, powering through the early bits where everything is really awkward, and we eventually came to an episode that really speaks to this particular issue. It's called My Sister's Keeper.
And again, she's making the extended comparison. She said this on Patreon that she was going to make a very long segment about this Digimon thing. Very odd to compare something that is meant for children to an adult fantasy series, but okay.
In this episode, Kari falls ill while they're in the digital world. They have to find medicine for her. The entire episode is Tai and Izzy trying to find that medicine in a digital city, but the longer Tai goes without success...
I'm putting this on 2x speed. Can I even do that? Oh, thank God. I've already been doing this for, like, long enough. This is torment. I feel like those mesothelioma ads, that it's like, I may be entitled to financial compensation, except this review is asbestos.
The more anxious and unstable he becomes, to the point he lashes out at Izzy over it. I actually like that this is so unusual for Tai that Izzy's not even mad. He's just like, the hell's going on? And when he calms down, he has to explain that when he was younger, he almost got Kari killed because he disregarded her health in order to play soccer. And then, well, let me just play it.
But what really kills me is what she said when they brought her home from the hospital. The first words out of her mouth.
Ty, I'm sorry I can't kick the ball very good. You'll probably never want to play with me again.
That's her. That's Kari. She never thinks about herself. It doesn't matter if she feels bad or she's bummed out about other stuff. She's always worried about the other kids. She wouldn't be sick. She'd be just fine if she never came to this stupid place. But she came because she knew that we needed her help. She never thought about what she wanted. She never does. Because she cares. She's a kid. I'm her big brother. I'm supposed to look after her and protect her and think of what's best for her. That's what I'm supposed to do.
This one event when he was 8 years old had a deep and profound impact on him, both for good and ill. And throughout this episode, he's reliving what is probably his worst memory. It's happening again. Tai is racked by guilt, but also deep and sincere love. I was honestly surprised this was happening in Digimon of all things. The love and adoration between Tai and Kari is the best part of
The thing that she's comparing this to is exactly like Lios and Fadlin. Like, I don't understand what she's going on about. Because this is exactly what Lios says about Phelan. Like, it's his fault that she's in the dungeon. It's his fault that she died. And he feels this guilt and he carries it with him and he constantly expresses it, which, again, I covered in my initial video.
The whole series. And I bring this up because Tai is quite similar to Lios. Singularly focused, impulsive, rash, kind of an asshole at times, hyperfixated on one or two topics and with an inflated sense of self-importance. But the thing is that Kari is always the exception. Kari is where Tai shows himself to be responsible, dedicated, loyal, loving, and selfless. And I wish this was a side we got to see of Lios. Hell, I wish this was a side we got to see in
We literally do see that side of Lios.
Siblings at all. Because the way people write sibling relationships has been starting closer and closer to mutual toxicity for a long time. I doubt anyone who likes Lios would argue it would be worse. Some people have argued this all makes sense for the character, but if Lios had been outwardly emotionally invested and found safety, would any of you have been saying, oh, this is bad, I'd have preferred if he was emotionally numb? The comic is just loaded with moments where Lios keeps pissing other characters off and they keep having to yell at him for his complete obliviousness. And after a while, it just gets weird the longer he goes without learning his lesson. All I'm saying is maybe we could take half of these and swap them out with more of, glad you're safe. I do genuinely like this moment. The almost
Yeah, and he does this several times. Also, again, like, he does this right after she bathes with Marcille. Yeah, and he doesn't cry like a 12-year-old saying it's not. So yeah, he doesn't cry like a 12-year-old saying so it's not impactful. Like, I don't understand that reasoning. It's just so cartoonish. He's 26 years old, and he's been so wounded by being different and by not fitting in that he's not always going to outwardly express his emotions. Most of his feelings are asides or things that he keeps to himself.
Manic smile, the very gentle way he hugs Fallon, the soft, delicate whisper of relief, the way he apologizes for making her cold and rushes to get her something to wear. This is great. I love it. I wish we had more of it, not just with Fallon, but with the other characters as well. That's not asking too much, right? If the ratio of Lios' boneheadedness and his sentiment was more balanced, he'd be more bearable. That balance is what makes the difference between Kronk and Zahir. Well, except for
It's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
but Lily, there's a clear and obvious reason he's like this. So, a lot of crappy characters have reasons they behave the way they do. I'd be hard-pressed to find one that doesn't. Fucking Ashley Graves had a reason for behaving the way she does.
Again, oh my god, why are you comparing this to a weird incest game? That's so weird!
It was neglect and social isolation. Does that mean I'm not allowed to call her a shit character now? Actually, if you
Yeah, and he's a professional adventurer who has died before, and so has his sister. Yeah, like, this death is part of the game. They know what they're in for. So he understands, though, it's his fault that she may not come back, and that is what the tension is from. And that's why it was such a strange thing to see her transformed.
Or don't answer that question. Modern media critique is so fixated on intent over execution because finding the intent is a lot easier than examining the execution. So as long
And the execution of Dungeon Meshi is universally applauded, except if you're Lily Orchard. So her trying to pin this on fans' interpretation, again, while espousing her interpretation of the series as objective fact, is the issue. Like, she is the one that went and spoiled and did not find anything to enjoy that was up to her taste, which, again, would have been fine if she didn't treat this as if it was the truth.
If someone has a reason they're doing the things they do, people act like that makes them automatically good. I've had my criticisms of a lot of things dismissed on the basis of intent. Whether that intent itself was good or they actually managed to pull that off is ignored because it's too difficult to figure out. And these are often the people who will accuse you of media illiteracy if you commit the mortal sin of disagreeing with them. They're also the same people who scream let people enjoy things when media critique has to exist in their vicinity. The show's called...
And this is, I am a hater, and I understand in my first video, I turned her praise of Spy Family against her because I don't like Spy Family, and I was someone who was initially reading Spy Family every week. I really liked it. I watched a little bit of the anime. I was really enjoying it, but to me it fell off, and I had a lot of issues with it, and that's something I'm going to go in depth on. But that is something I can quantify with the series and what it gives us. And I think a lot of people do have their issues with Spy Family, even if they do enjoy it. You know, there are things to critique about it. That's not just being like, oh, let people enjoy things. It's like, it's understanding that there are issues with things that you enjoy, and also like not treating your disagreements with things that people love as fact, which I understand I kind of did with Spy Family, and but I can at least quantify that, you know, like even if it's a test, I can do the Bechdel test on Spy Family and make a point. But the way that she's talking about Meshi, it's kind of just like her trying to be the inverse of let people enjoy things. It's like let people hate things for like no reason.
Well, he pretty much lives and dies on Lios. If you like him and are willing to go through his backstory, this show will probably seem like the best show ever made, but if you don't, he's the biggest, most obstructive roadblock to everything you do like. So if you don't like characters like this show is going to be very tedious to watch. The BoJack Horseman comparison works the best. In spite of its flaws, you have to like BoJack Horseman enough to reach the point where BoJack Horseman smacks BoJack Horseman for being BoJack Horseman. So getting away from BoJack Tall Man, let's move on to the other.
Did she just use her weird Gardevoir child OC there?
Where BoJack Horseman smacks BoJack Horseman for being BoJack Horseman.
Oh my gosh, she did.
Tall Man. Let's move on to the other significant character and the one who is actually good. Marcel, the elfin mage, because it's always a mage and elfin swordswoman would just be absurd apparently, is Fallon's best friend and whose sanity is hanging on by an absolute thread. Unlike
and you notice how she keeps using her own drawings and OCs to compare to Dungeon Meshi. Like, she keeps using her own drawings of characters and her own writing to be like, oh, mine is so much better and so much more elevated than Dungeon Meshi.
Marcel thinks that eating monsters is disgusting because everything about how she's been taught about safe food makes the idea of eating slime completely anathema to the idea of wanting to live. And so for the first half of the series, she provides most of the comedy, being the only sane woman in a pack of absolute psychopaths. Takes me back to when I was 14 and my girlfriend forced me to eat sushi, and everything I've been taught about safe food up to that point told me that
she also used this example in the original response.
raw meat was bad, and also you're giving it to me, so you probably laced it with poison. Yeah, it was good, but I had to take about 10 minutes to swallow the initial instinct to not eat something I'd been taught to equate with danger. I think a lot of people are often hesitant to try new foods at first, even if they're super open-minded. That first bite's always gonna take some mental preparation. Although that having been said, you will never convince me to eat blowfish. I'm a terminally unlucky woman. Marcel is the best part of the show. She's a much more grounded person, ironically.
No, I don't wanna!
And she's actually quite genuinely funny. Furthermore, she's averse to the tone issues Lios drags around with him like a trail of vaguely confused ducklings. She has all the tension and anxiety about Fallon I wish the other characters would, and she actively works on herself throughout the show and grows the most as a person. But granted, she didn't have much competition there. Fallon's absent for most of the story. Chilchuck, I didn't actually pay much attention to Chilchuck, honestly.
Oh my god, and then she read the manga and she has nothing to say on Chilchuck. That's the thing, like, she didn't even remember his name at first.
So I'm mostly focused on the other two central characters and their mutual motivation, and Lios and self-reflection go together about as well as Israel and other people's
Senshi has one of the most rewarding backstory reveals, I think, in the series. Really, really thoroughly enjoyed it, and it explains so much about his character.
territory. At times, Marcel seems to have much closer
the Chilchuck slander. Sentence death. Oh my god.
Oh, they're gay as shit.
I don't care if you've grown, you're still a runt in my eyes.
In fact, scenes of Marcel and Fallon in that mandatory anime fanservice bath scene got a lot of people believing that they had sapphic.
See, again, she called it mandatory anime bath scene, but this is just something further establishing the intimacy between the two. It is not shot sexually. Like I said in my initial video, I digress that I will give her that Fallon has a much bigger chest in this than she does in the manga, but it's meant to depict intimacy. It's not sexual.
I probably decided to watch the show for that alone. I know my wife in the same sapphic language.
Oh, of course. I decided to watch Dungeon Meshi for this sapphic reasons alone. Like, she's going in expecting a lighthearted Yuri fluff story, and then she also got everything spoiled, so I don't understand why she's going in complaining about tonal issues if, one, she went in spoiled on knowing everything was going to happen, and then also was upset that there wasn't enough haha silly oh my goodness lesbians.
Her watch Arcane was about to do the same thing before I told her the truth. They aren't. Which I'm fine with, honestly. Give me highly affectionate BFFs, highly affectionate siblings, or highly affectionate romantic couples. Any of them will do. I'm not picky. I don't care how the emotional intimacy happens as long as there's emotional intimacy. And I adore the friendship between Marcel and Fallon. I'm living for how much she cherishes Fallon and the length she's willing to go to in order to rescue her. It was Marcel and her sheer relentless drive to rescue Fallon that made me keep going up until the point that I just had to tap out because I had to make the video, and also I really don't like the show. There's an episode where they run into one of their former party members after Marcel has been drained of her mana, and while Lios is just like, oh hey, small world, Marcel is pissed that they abandoned Fallon like that. And later in the episode when Lios tries to send her back to the surface because she's injured, the idea of just leaving without Fallon is so crushing to her that she does everything she can to recover without leaving. And if it hasn't become clear yet through every comparison I make in this video, my favorite character motivation has always been and will always be devotion. That Marcel's devotion to her friend is the forefront of her character is the show's saving grace. Every time I said to myself, I've seen enough, Marcel would do something like this and keep me going for a while. Even in the scene where Lios...
But every character is devoted in their own way. You know, that Senshi is devoted to furthering an understanding of nutrition and health, which is what the group was lacking to begin with. Chill Truck, obviously he's devoted to a paycheck, but he does end up growing very close to the party. Marcel and Lios are both devoted to saving, someone that is very dear to them. So just being like, oh, Marcel's the only one who experiences any emotions is just so cartoonishly ridiculous.
Reaches his most unbearable. Marcel ends up being the one who
I need my characters to be emotional like me or I die. Yeah, basically, that's her number one qualm. And this is when, in her initial review, when she compared Dungeon Meshi to her writing, which was so unprofessional, but it seems that she does this a lot. I haven't endured her other criticisms, but it seems that she constantly pulls this kind of critique that she's like, oh my god, my writing is so much better.
Do you recognize who I am? Marcel, stop it!
Marcel's devotion also is the gold standard for character work of informing both her positive and negative attributes, as it's her desperation to get Fallon back that leads to her using a dark forbidden ritual and accidentally binding her soul to a dragon, which is something Fallon never fully recovers from. Marcel makes foolish, reckless decisions in the pursuit of getting Fallon back, and as a result has to do most of the learning and growing as a character because her actions have direct and unavoidable consequences. Marcel is a reckless woman who makes dangerous decisions, oftentimes more reckless than Lios, but it's always immediately clear why, and is understandable because love makes you do dangerous and reckless things, especially if it's born out of a fear for someone's safety. It also
okay, but if she read the manga, I don't understand why she's saying that Lios doesn't do that exact same thing.
Absent for the vast majority of the story, you get the sense of what kind of person Fallon is to inspire that kind of adoration and devotion. If anything, the fact that they aren't gay only makes this more evident. You see the way Marcel behaves and go, wow, Fallon must be someone special. I found myself genuinely liking Fallon as a character in spite of the fact we see very little of her. And what little we do see is just kind of tropey. I mean, she's a soft-spoken priest, she's just very generically nice. She refers to Lios as brother and...
But that's the point of Fallon, that she's a people pleaser, and she feels like she has to go out of her way to make other people feel comfortable because she was socialized in that way. Her and Lios experience the same kind of othering, but Fallon feels like she has to overcompensate for that. Well, Lios just completely rejects it after years and years and years of being denigrated.
Instead of his name, like I'm almost positive Fallon was created by opening up Final Fantasy 14 and clicking randomize, but that doesn't matter because Marcel's affection and concern for Fallon is making me adore her character in spite of that. I don't even care that she isn't that deep because I haven't seen as much of her as Marcel has.
Whoa, hey!
My main issue, however, is that Marcel is often made the butt of the joke. She's the only sane woman in a group consisting of one of...
I also
picked up in the LFG channel.
Yeah, I already addressed the weird way that she talks about Marcel being the butt of the joke in my initial video, so.
Like Commander Tuvok. So oftentimes her honestly very reasonable reactions to every weird thing going on in the dungeon comes off like the ramblings of a pampered princess. Hell, one thing I heard in my Discord server is that the reason nobody acts any sort of urgency toward Fallon is because death isn't permanent here, and that's made everyone jaded. But Marcel rips the sheet off that facade because she's not nearly as jaded as everyone else is. Death might not be permanent, but if the body can't be found or is destroyed, it certainly is. And Marcel knows this. But
yeah, I already talked about this.
She's often treated like the one causing most of the problems.
Big bats and giant rats.
I'm not eating unhygienic things.
Forest goblins.
Same with demi-humans.
Living armor.
Metal. That's it? There's nothing normal?
Oh my god, first you say I'm fine with anything, then hate whatever we suggest. You're that type.
Oh my god, Marcel, just be okay with quasi-cannibalism and eating steel. That's the joke, Lily. Oh, was it? My apologies. I was thrown off by the fact that it wasn't funny. I'll do better, I promise. The fact that Marcel is the most likable character in the room and gets crapped on by characters who are in desperate need of therapy, medicine, and a few kicks to the sack for good measure just comes off as...
It also seems like, because I was seeing online that she was using all her little animated bits and asides, like ripping off some animated comedian I don't know much about, but she's completely removed all those little bits from this, especially the part that she calls anime fans perverts just for liking anime, or just like pedophiles, because that was another weird tangent she went on. She's removed that entirely, and I think that was one of the things that people were leveraging against her, being like, that was a really weird stance to take, or a really weird thing to bring up. So she's completely removed that. I'm just noticing that now.
Weird, honestly. Especially since we've established the show removes moments where other characters give Lios shit for basically being a freshly born nobody. Oh, you know, anime is being weird about women, Lil. Excuse me, I learned the fucking media. Yeah, I know. Anime and women have long gone together like oil and environmental stability. But there's no reason that has to be the case. I've seen several anime that can treat women like actual people. Who's making this adaptation? You know, on reflection, I should have known that sooner. There's a bleeding, screaming woman ripping her shirt off. Of course it's Trigger. But the way Marcel is treated in general just rubs me the wrong way, especially after Spy Family, where Yor gets to be a fully nuanced character.
Oh my god. Yor is not a fully nuanced character. This is something I'm going to go really in depth on, but Yor is basically restrained to the way that she talks about and operates around men and being a mother. She is confined to this role of traditional femininity, whether it be, you know, the fact that she is an assassin is just like, it's just a little thing that she's propped up on, but you don't even get that much of it because most of the series of Spy Family is focused on Lloyd's missions and the tension between Anya and Damien that is just like so boring that no one cares about. Sorry, that's also just me, but it's such a weird thing to focus on because she's talking about Yor being an excellent fleshed out character, but Yor is nothing but one, concerned mother to Anya, or two, doing things for her brother or to like keep her fake marriage together. Everything she does and talks about is related to being a mother or being a wife. That is basically it. She has no other characterization outside of this. She has no other motivations outside of this. She just wants to live a very stereotypical feminine life. And this wouldn't be an issue if not, like, I kid you not, like, especially later on, she has no actual plot. She doesn't really have any cool, awesome assassination moments. She's basically just being like, oh my goodness, my fake marriage. Oh my goodness, my brother. Oh my goodness, my child. And it's like, I'm going to do a very extensive analysis of this on its own. But I really take issue with calling your a nuanced character when she is defined entirely by men and their expectations of her.
It's offer commentary on Cold War era gender norms, and how she utterly fails to meet them, yet that's what everyone loves about her. Is it perfect?
Yeah, but at the same time, she's performing to meet those gender roles. And the whole bit is like, it's more playing off that it's funny that she doesn't meet those gender roles, but she's also still operating within that framework. That doesn't make her a nuanced character, just makes her the butt of every joke.
Well, no, but neither is getting a 50 on your final exam. It's still a passing grade. Still, Marcel remains the main draw to even watch the show because she's arguably the main character, and it's still quite lovable. If anything, the crap she gets from others just makes her even more sympathetic. I know I said the show lives and dies on if you can tolerate Lios, but I think you have to significantly dislike him like I do for Marcel to not successfully pick up the slack. And that's where I struggle finding a way to judge Delicious in Dungeon. What about the main plot, Lil? Evil wizard at the bottom of an evil dungeon. Kill him. Look, it's not that deep. The plot just exists to drive all characters insane, except for the two who already are. Anyway, it's a strange one to grade because it's so
Which is also not true.
Sure.
Just saying the plot exists just to drive the characters insane? What? What? Did we read the same thing? Like, what is she talking about?
Everything is subjective, but a critic can at the very least make an adequate guess on what most people will find enjoyable. It's rare when a base-breaking character like this affects the entire show, but with Lios it could swing either way, so I have to give the show 2 grades based on that. One thing.
So she's grading the show based off of her opinion and treating it like it's fact, and then being like, oh, but if you liked Lios, this is it also based on my interpretation of the show.
The thing that's worth mentioning is that the fanbase for the show is fucking god-awful. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
I know weebs have always been somewhere between Eric Cartman and the guy from Fight Club in terms of their ability to exist with other people, but fucking hell, this is the second time making this video because the first one was a lot less gentle, and it was like stepping on a wasp's nest as the most feral, angry pack of lunatics did everything short of doxing me in their outrage. It was because of these.
Okay, first of all, I don't know what she's talking about with the doxing thing. I know I made my response, but it's like, the reason that everyone was so upset is because she was so flagrant in that initial video, because she was so upset about the series being what it was and not being what she expected it to be, that she just ended up insulting autistic people and fans and calling everyone that liked anime or Dungeon Meshi pedophiles, perverts, and stuff like that. So the fact that she's being like, oh, it was stepping like a wasp's nest. You went in with the bat to begin with. You went in with a very flagrant attitude and a very provocative tone, and then you expected not to get backlash. Like, obviously it was heightened because the grade was posted on Twitter. I don't know how things were on Twitter. I don't use Twitter. But she was so, like, willing to die on her hill, and she was just so rude to people that interpreted the series in a different way, or people that really genuinely enjoyed it. And she was just coming out of left field swinging. That's what I don't understand. And then being like, all these sweaty losers are like coming for me. You went for them first. You were the one that set the tone. You know, don't dish it out if you can't take it.
I went and read the comic only to find myself vindicated on all my complaints. And these are the same people who claim I have no media literacy. Some of them claimed I was ableist for disliking a character they decided was autistic.
Yeah, I was the one that said she was ableist.
And then proceeded to call me a retard multiple times over.
I did not say that.
So which is a clown? I know it's odd to point out an unhinged fanbase as a negative, but there are some fanbases who are like next level weird about discourse around their precious baby. Like they spent their entire life never having to interact with another human being. So,
which is also not true, because I think everyone in the Dungeon Meshi community is very, very willing to give leeway to certain interpretations, especially on Tumblr. There are so many beautiful, nuanced takes. Even if people don't like certain characters, they're willing to look into their character arcs and understand the writing, and there's a lot of reverence for Ryoko Kui's writing. So her just being like, oh my god, like everyone was just defending how bad this was. Again, it's like, you went in with certain expectations, Lily. I don't understand why you were so upset, because you went in with certain expectations. You started attacking the fans in your initial video, and you had to take it down within 48 hours because you were so flagrant and disrespectful to people.
Just a heads up, if you watch this show and dislike it, probably best not to say anything. She said at the end of her critical video.
Yeah, she said at the end of her critical video because she was offering nothing but opinions that were propped up as facts. If she didn't call this like one of the anime of all time, if she didn't treat her interpretations as the truth, I don't think anyone would have had an issue with this. But it's the fact that she wanted to basically treat this video as an attack on people who recommended the show to her and on its fans and the people that enjoyed Lios as a character. That is where the issue stemmed from. So the fact that she is so surprised by the backlash and the responses to her initial video, and honestly also this one, I'm seeing a lot of like negative feedback on this one as well. That is ultimately her shortcoming. She doesn't have to like Dungeon Meshi. No one says, like, you know, no one's dictating this opinion. No one's telling her what to like or dislike. But she is the one that kind of went into this saying what Dungeon Meshi should be. It should conform to my tastes and my expectations and what I want for a series. Compares it to things that are completely unrelated, like slice of life series and children's shows, and then again is mad when it's not like that. She expected a flat out like lesbian comedy. that's not what Dungeon Meshi is even advertised as. And I understand the fandom can depict it differently. Like, there's a lot of people just focused on the Farseal aspect, which I love Farseal as a ship, but that is not the core of Dungeon Meshi. And then she's going into that, like, she went into this spoiled, expecting something, didn't get it, got upset, attacked the fans. So that's basically what happened. And that's just the credits. That's my main thing with her. Like, obviously my initial video still stands, I think, in the face of this. She completely rejected the bits that she calls everyone pedophiles or perverts, or she removed the animated bits as well. I guess she didn't want to take accountability for just being genuinely ableist and policing other people, but she doubled down basically on all her takes. So for a more coherent kind of response to this, I do recommend just watching my initial video if it has been watched already. This was a really, really annoying watch. I think I'm gonna go lay down and take a leave because this is so stressful. Oh my god. Basically, yeah. Too long didn't watch, too long didn't listen. She just ended up shitting on the series all over again, and again, propped up her opinion as if it was the truth. No one would have cared if she was just like, oh, this is what I think. No, like, she's treating it as if it is objectively bad. But, wow, that took an hour. I am never watching another Lily Orchard video again. The government should send me $1 million for sitting through this. This was like a hate crime that I had to endure. Yeah, so this is gonna go on YouTube in a bit. So thank you all for watching and suffering through this with me. This was really, really agonizing and horrible because she basically just doubled down. Everyone was right. Thank you, thank you. I feel like I was a little bit incoherent because I was just so appalled by the things that she was just doubling down on. And I do think my initial video still stands. Like, I still think every point I made completely goes against what she says. And I was only using the series up until that point, you know? I still think that she didn't completely read the manga because she just completely, like, it went completely over her head. Every single point that it was making. Every genre trope that it was bending. Every character moment. The fact that she's just reducing Senshi to, like, a nothing character is so telling. That she just, like, was, again, reading with her eyes closed. So that was really, really annoying. And she didn't mention Kabru in relation to Lios. Exactly. Oh my god, that's like another thing. There was no focus on Kabru whatsoever. And I know, like, my boyfriend's actually in the chat right now, and he does not like Kabru at all. But that's also kind of the point of Kabru's character. Like, he's supposed to be the inverse of Lios. He's Dark Lios. So there's just so many layers to Dungeon Meshi in the writing and the characterization that to just completely gloss over things, glaze Marseille and Spy Family and Digimon and just, like, children's series, and then just be, like, mad that the series wasn't what she wanted. She just doubled down. She basically just ended up doubling down on everything while removing the more flagrant bits. She removed the ableism rant that was 2 minutes long, the animation and stuff. Oh my goodness. So, yeah, I don't get it. I really don't get where she's coming from. If she just said, this is my opinion and this is how I felt about the series, no one would have cared. But it's the fact that she went out the gate mad at everything and was just harassing people straight up. I was astonished when she was calling people pedophile for liking anime and stuff like that. Like, that's just so, oh my god, that's so weird. That's so weird. Anyway, I'm never watching anything that she makes ever again. I suffered through this. I'm gonna go back to making my silly little video essays and video diaries because this was torment. This was torture. This was hell on earth. Yeah, it is projection, ultimately. So, oh. Yep. Stream is over. We are freed from this video. We will never have to endure the horrors again. Thank you all for joining. I am so sorry that you had to sit through this, and yeah, this will be on YouTube by tonight. So thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.